Laura Family Farms had been a pillar of Cedar Valley for over 6 decades. Founded in 1962 by Laura Wilson's grandparents, the farm was more than land and livestock. It was a symbol of resilience. Generations of the Wilson family had poured their lives into this soil, rising with the sun and laboring until nightfall. Laura grew up walking the rows of corn and wheat, learning early how fragile success could be in farming. Her childhood was marked by simple routines, yet profound lessons. She watched her grandparents navigate floods, storms, and the unpredictable seasons. Every harvest carried triumphs and disappointments. She learned that crops could fail despite hard work, and livestock could fall ill without warning. These experiences shaped her determination and deep love for the land. Laura's parents continued the legacy, teaching her not only the skills of farming but the value of commitment, family, and community trust. By the 2000s, Laura had become the heartbeat of the farm. She took over operations in her mid-20s, overseeing planting schedules, livestock care, and financial management. Cedar Valley residents knew the Wilsons as hardworking and dependable. Their farm was a fixture at local fairs, supply markets, and county gatherings. But even in its success, the farm faced hidden pressures. Shifting markets, rising costs, and increasingly severe weather hinted at looming challenges. Neighbors recall Laura walking the fields during dry spells, her eyes scanning the horizon as if reading secrets in the soil. She celebrated small victories: a healthy herd, a good harvest, or the repair of a weathered fence. Yet beneath these victories, the farm carried a fragile balance. One bad season could undo months of effort, and one unexpected disaster could wipe out decades of work. By early 2024, subtle signs of strain had already begun. Crop yields were uneven, and some livestock showed signs of illness. Laura worked tirelessly, juggling early mornings and late nights, but even her dedication might not be enough. The farm's reputation for reliability and abundance masked the vulnerabilities growing quietly behind the barn doors. This chapter sets the stage for what was about to come. Laura's deep connection to her land, her family's legacy, and the community's reliance on her work would soon collide with events beyond her control. The foundation that had supported the farm for generations was about to be tested in ways no one in Cedar Valley could have imagined. But as spring arrived in 2024, a single event would ignite a chain reaction that changed everything. On the night of March 14, 2024, Cedar Valley awoke to the smell of smoke and the sound of distant sirens. Flames had erupted at Laura Family Farms, consuming the main barn in minutes. Neighbors rushed out of their homes, phones in hand, only to watch the blaze grow, casting an eerie orange glow across the fields. The barn housed decades of equipment, feed, and hundreds of animals, some of which could not be saved. Firefighters arrived quickly, battling the inferno as sparks leapt into the cold night air. Despite their best efforts, much of the structure was lost. The Wilson family watched from a distance, hearts sinking as flames devoured what had taken generations to build. Laura herself could not stop trembling. Memories of her childhood, of learning to care for every animal and nurture every crop, seemed to vanish in the heat. The cause of the fire remained a mystery. Early reports hinted at a possible electrical fault, yet neighbors whispered about suspicious activity the night before. Investigators found evidence that complicated the story further, raising questions about whether it was a tragic accident or something more sinister. Laura was forced to face not just the physical destruction but the uncertainty surrounding it. Who or what could have caused this? And why now, at the peak of planting season? The emotional toll was immediate. Laura's parents, siblings, and close friends rallied to help, but the loss was overwhelming. Equipment essential for plowing and planting lay in ashes. Feed for livestock had burned, leaving the remaining animals at risk. Every calculation, every plan, every hope for the season seemed undone. The Wilsons faced a difficult choice: attempt to rebuild immediately or risk further losses if they waited. In the days that followed, the community responded with support. Farmers lent tractors, neighbors brought supplies, and local news outlets shared updates. Yet the shadow of despair remained. Laura worked tirelessly, waking before dawn to assess the damage and plan recovery. Emotional highs came in brief moments, rescuing a few surviving animals or salvaging tools from the wreckage. But each step forward was met with setbacks, from burnt machinery to lingering smoke damage. This chapter emphasizes the human struggle, the intensity of grief, and the vulnerability of life on a farm. Laura's courage and determination are tested in the harshest of circumstances. The fire was not just a physical destruction of property. It represented the collapse of security, routine, and predictability. The farm that had stood for generations now felt fragile, teetering on the edge of ruin. Just when Laura thought recovery might be possible, another unexpected blow threatened to destroy her world entirely. The fire left more than burned wood and charred fields. For Laura Wilson, it marked the beginning of a deeper crisis. With equipment destroyed, livestock lost, and crops already under threat from unpredictable weather, the farm's finances spiraled quickly. Loans that had once been manageable became urgent liabilities. Bills piled up, and the dream of a full recovery seemed increasingly out of reach. Every decision carried weight, and every mistake could have lasting consequences. Laura faced the cold realities of modern farming. Market prices fluctuated unpredictably, leaving her struggling to sell the remaining produce at a fair price. Fuel and feed costs rose steadily, squeezing profit margins. Even routine maintenance on surviving equipment became a challenge. Local suppliers expressed sympathy, but sympathy could not pay for repairs or cover the loans that had been accelerated by the fire. Laura spent hours analyzing numbers, searching for solutions that seemed impossible to find. The personal toll was just as severe. Laura's sleep became fragmented, her mind racing with calculations and worst-case scenarios. Tension with family members grew. Her parents, while supportive, worried aloud about the possibility of selling the farm. Siblings questioned whether it was realistic to continue. Friends offered advice, but every suggestion seemed to highlight just how precarious the situation had become. Emotional stress compounded every practical challenge. Laura also grappled with isolation. Cedar Valley had always been a community of support, but as the farm teetered on collapse, some neighbors distanced themselves, unsure if the Wilsons would survive. Even small daily tasks felt heavier under the weight of responsibility. Feeding surviving animals, preparing fields for planting, and maintaining the remaining equipment became exercises in endurance. Yet Laura refused to give up. Every morning she rose with the same determination that had been instilled in her as a child, even when the day ahead seemed impossible. This chapter highlights the human struggle behind the headlines, the intersection of emotional strain, financial pressure, and family responsibility. Laura's journey illustrates the fragility of small farms and the resilience required to fight for survival. Each setback deepened her resolve, but also raised new fears. Could the farm truly survive, or would one more disaster finally break it? Every decision became a turning point, every small success a fragile hope in an uncertain future. Yet, even in the darkest moments, a glimmer of hope appeared, hinting at an unexpected opportunity that could change everything. Just when the weight of loss seemed unbearable, an unexpected opportunity appeared. In late April 2024, a local investor reached out to Laura Wilson with a proposal to help save Laura Family Farms. The offer was unusual, but it carried the potential to stabilize the farm financially and secure the future for the next planting season. For the first time since the fire, Laura felt a spark of hope. This chapter explores the tension between optimism and caution. Laura had spent her life building the farm on trust, tradition, and family values. Accepting outside help meant opening the door to someone with unknown intentions. She spent hours negotiating terms, reading contracts, and consulting trusted advisors. Each meeting brought relief but also anxiety. Could she trust this investor? Would the farm lose its independence in exchange for survival? Community support began to reemerge. Neighbors, inspired by Laura's perseverance, offered assistance, lending equipment and manpower. Local media began sharing her story, attracting attention and donations from a wider audience. For the first time in months, there were signs that recovery might be possible. Laura worked alongside volunteers, rebuilding fences, repairing equipment, and planting seeds for a new harvest. Every small victory was emotional, proof that the farm could endure despite everything. Yet tension remained. The farm was far from fully recovered. Debt still hung over the Wilson family, and unpredictable weather threatened the fragile new crops. Laura had to make critical choices about where to allocate limited resources. Every decision carried consequences, both financial and personal. The emotional tone of the chapter balances relief with uncertainty, showing the human cost of starting over. This chapter emphasizes resilience, hope, and careful calculation. Laura's determination inspires those around her, but the road to full recovery is littered with risks. The narrative highlights the delicate balance between opportunity and danger, showing that even in moments of hope, challenges are never far away. Viewers witness the struggle of a woman rebuilding her life and legacy, reminding us that perseverance often comes with sacrifice. But just as recovery seemed possible, a shocking revelation threatened to undo all of Laura's progress, leaving her future hanging in the balance. Just as Laura Wilson began to see signs of recovery, a hidden truth emerged that shook her to the core. During a routine review of the farm's finances, she discovered irregularities that had been overlooked for years. Some debts were larger than she realized, while certain records raised questions about past decisions made by trusted advisors. The stability she had worked so hard to regain suddenly seemed fragile. This chapter explores the emotional impact of betrayal and uncertainty. Laura had always believed in the integrity of those around her, from financial consultants to family friends. Now, she faced the difficult task of untangling complicated financial mistakes, some of which may have been deliberate. The revelation forced her to confront a painful reality. Survival would demand not just hard work, but vigilance, scrutiny, and difficult choices that could affect her family and legacy. The emotional tension in this chapter is palpable. Laura feels anger, disappointment, and fear simultaneously. Each phone call, document review, and conversation carries weight. The farm's future is no longer a question of labor alone. It is now a test of judgment and resilience. As she digs deeper, the financial puzzle reveals how fragile the farm's foundation had become, despite years of careful planning. Laura's family feels the strain as well. Her parents worry about the exposure of past mistakes, while her siblings grapple with uncertainty about whether the farm can survive. Even the local community, who had rallied around her, begins to wonder if the Wilsons can overcome yet another setback. Emotional highs and lows dominate each day, as small victories are overshadowed by larger, looming challenges. This chapter emphasizes the human struggle behind the headlines. It highlights how unforeseen truths can undermine hope and how resilience is tested not just by external disasters, but by hidden problems within trusted structures. Laura must make critical decisions about which battles to fight, which risks to take, and how to protect both her family and her livelihood. Each choice carries profound consequences, leaving viewers on edge as the story unfolds. Despite the pressure, Laura remains determined. She channels her frustration into action, carefully planning her next moves. Yet the revelation leaves lingering questions. Could she overcome not only financial instability but also the sense of betrayal? Would the farm survive, or would this hidden truth prove to be the final blow? The final challenge would test not just the farm, but Laura herself, in ways no one expected. With every challenge mounting, Laura Wilson faced the most difficult chapter of her life. The fire, financial strain, and hidden revelations had pushed her to the brink. Yet she refused to surrender. In early May 2024, she began a strategic plan to rebuild Laura Family Farms from the ground up. This was not just about repairing buildings or buying livestock. It was about reclaiming her family's legacy. Laura started by prioritizing the most critical needs. Equipment was repaired or replaced, fences were rebuilt, and surviving crops were tended with renewed care. She worked side by side with volunteers, neighbors, and a few loyal employees. Every day demanded physical labor, careful decision-making, and emotional resilience. She faced setbacks at every turn. Sudden storms, delays in supply deliveries, and bureaucratic obstacles that threatened to slow recovery.